always really enjoyed talking to people,
Mm-hmm.
and this just kind of was like, oh, I could do a podcast, right? It started out in my parents' kitchen. Actually, was the birthplace.
Mm-hmm.
We used to do it on a little ping pong table, and then it kind of grew into this little makeshift studio we got here today.
Yeah, well, this is sweet. You have a great studio in here. I
It's
mean,
it's it's been fun. Some people call it the murder shed, but then they come inside and they're like, oh, okay, this is way cooler.
yeah, well,
So
when you were like, it's in the garage next to the house, I'm like,
yeah,
okay. I mean,
yep,
I'm sure he has slept it up, or else he wouldn't be, inviting
yeah.
random people over,
I know. I try not to say the garage. I try to say the studio because you say the garage and people are like, we're gonna
Hmm.
go meet up in your garage. I've never met you. I don't really know you. We're gonna go meet in your garage.
Uh-huh.
I'm
Hey,
like,
I'm gonna show you my
yeah,
chainsaw
yeah,
collection.
yeah. It's really nice. It's on the wall.
Uh-huh.
I have laminated notes next to it, so you know what kind of
Yeah, that's a
chainsaw it
really
is.
great Jason mask you have on the
Yeah, I
wall.
started a collection a long time ago. I became a big fan. So I try to say studio, but sometimes I'll say garage, and it's
For
like,
sure.
oh shit, what is that?
Right.
Um, but you, the time standard, that's where you're
Yes.
currently working now.
Hmm.
How do you like that?
It's different. So
Yeah,
I guess a little bit of background about me.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm a radio person. So are my levels okay?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay,
you're good.
great.
Oh,
Okay, cool.
you've got
I
it
want to
down.
make sure because
Wow.
my
Okay.
head. I haven't spoken on mic with headphones on in quite some time, so
Okay.
this is different. But
Is my audio in your ears good? Because we can
yes,
change
no,
that.
yeah, your
Okay.
audio is
Oh,
great. So
perfect.
I sound more subdued. So I'm like, do I sound
Yeah. No,
okay?
you're
But
good. Wow, that's
cool,
awesome.
yeah.
Okay.
So being at the time standard is a bit of a challenge in that I was trained in radio. So I came from Colorado to go to HSU. Miles Cochran, who I don't know if you've ever spoken to Miles, he does
I
the
don't think
Humboldt
so.
Last Week podcast.
Okay.
And I know him from home in Colorado. And so he came up to Humboldt and he was a DJ at K Slug for, gosh, like 5, 6 years, maybe more. Now he's over at Caltrans. But yeah, Miles told me, I think that you'd really like Humboldt. And I wanted to get into anthropology at the time. And I realized that CU Boulder was a hell of a lot more expensive than Humboldt was. And I applied at Humboldt because I saw they had a good anthropology department. And I got accepted and I had never visited here before. So I just went for it. And I'll never forget the first time I drove through Eureka when I got here. And I was like, wow, Eureka fucking sucks.
What did I do? Yeah.
What did
Right.
I do? And the next day it was really sunny. So that helped. And found some cool spots in Arcata. And I just committed to it, And so I started taking film photography classes at HSU. And by the end of my freshman year, I was like, I want to be a photojournalist, which was also in line with what I had wanted to do previously. And so second year, I got into radio, KRFH, the college radio course program.
Through
And
HSU.
mhm,
Oh, okay. Nice.
yeah, so they had before KHSU was totally stripped and, is the ghost ship that it is now. I interned for them and it was this, vibrant, amazing radio station. So I worked at the student station before that and had a late night, midnight to 2 a.m. metal show and a bunch of other shows on the station. And so I got into radio through there and then subsequently went on to work after graduation at KMUD and became the news director after only a few months, which was a little wild as a 22-year-old freshly graduated. And yeah, so I've been in radio and then I left KMUD as news director in 2018 and started freelancing and worked at a coffee shop for a while. And so getting into the Time Standard was very tricky because you do not write for print like you write for radio. It's a
Hmm.
very, very different approach because, you write for radio like you talk. And with print, you got to worry about grammar, which I'm a good writer, but grammar is not really my strong suit. I
Yeah.
love to comma splice. So that's been challenging, but my editor's thankfully been patient. So,
Yeah.
I've
That's
been,
nice.
yeah. And yeah, I've been there since November, I guess.
Was that was it kind of the plan to go from KMUD into print writing like that, or website writing for the Time Standard, or did that just kind of happen?
Well, it just happened. I mean, when I left KMUD, honestly, I was, like I said, I took on the role as news director when I was 22. And it was really, really intense. I love the Southern Humboldt community, but as someone who did not live there, as a young 22-year-old who, didn't have any real life journalism experience, and I'm trying to get to know this community. And I was confronted with so much, you're not from here, you don't know this community. And I was just like, show me, help me. I can't get to know your community unless you help me. And there were people that did, but then there's this crusade of like 10 people that dubbed themselves the Concerned K-Mutters, and they tried their darndest to basically oust me and my co-director, Sydney Marone. And so it was a really challenging 2 years, and I made some really amazing connections. I love K-Mud. I love Southern Humboldt. But so when I left, I was like, fuck this. I want to make a latte. I want to work a job where the worst thing that'll happen is someone will be like, you burned my latte. And then that's it. I don't want someone calling into question the integrity of my news, And so I did that for a while. And then, the tables kind of turned. I'm like, I have no self-worth because being a barista sucks. And then the Times Standard was hiring. And initially I was very intimidated about the print factor, but I applied for it and I got it and I'm here. So, yeah.
It all works out.
That is a
weird thing. I don't know if that's just Humboldt. I've only ever heard about people experiencing that in Humboldt where they get that backlash of it's like, oh, I just moved here, I'm doing my thing, whatever it is, and there's people just shitting on you for no reason. It's like, I'm just trying to do, especially in your case, it's like, I'm just trying to do the news. Like,
right. Which I get it. I mean, I think sometimes I've been in Humboldt for 10 years now and I love it and I don't really see myself leaving. But, that's one of the things I think about, because there's kind of a ceiling here with your journalism career. I could maybe end up being an editor somewhere and that would be better pay and maybe a more, lifer job. But, I don't, sorry, I'm kind of losing my train of thought.
No, you're fine.
But, oh God, where was I going with that? Well, anyway, I was, how people feel about,
it's a weird thing.
Yeah. So, I just did everything I could to, try to show people. Oh, no, I know what I was going to say. I was going to say, if I were ever to leave, I think about having to devote all this time and energy into relearning a community because the small town, Cortez, Colorado, I grew up in, I do not know 1/3 about Cortez's history, its people, the common issues, or, what's going on there that I do in Humboldt County, and it's taken a lot of time to build that up. But, of course, I had to rely very heavily on community members, people to be patient with me and show me. But that's the thing, I can read the news, I can get a little bit of the picture, but, now this experience I had at K-Mud, no offense to any of my coworkers at the Times Standard, but I honestly really feel like I have a much better understanding of what's going on down there than they do. And I don't know how long they've been here, but they don't seem to, I remember when Michelle Bushnell was elected in this last election cycle as the 2nd district supervisor. And my editors were just blown away. And they're like, how could Estelle lose? Because Estelle Fennell was the incumbent, obviously. And she used to be the news director at K-Mud. And so I know Estelle in that sense. And that's how she got the job or, became supervisor because Soham was like, finally, we have someone who knows what's going on with us and she's going to represent us. This is amazing. And I have a very good relationship with Estelle, journalist to journalist kind of, but she really disappointed the constituents down there in Soham, and a lot of people really felt she didn't make good on their promises, and so they didn't reelect her, and so my editors are shocked, and I'm like, well, I knew that. I've had people in my ear about that since I started K-Mud, so there's a lot to be said for that. And Soham is, sorely lacking from coverage.
I'm going to pause you for 30 seconds. We're still rolling. I completely forgot to adjust your video. I was so excited to sit down and start talking. Oh, luckily, okay, it's good. It's not bad.
Okay, good.
I was so excited to sit down. We just started rolling in. Okay.
Nice. Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No,
Please
no
continue.
problem.
That's the first time that's happened. I was like,
oh, well, we just jumped right into it. Yeah.
Well, you're a professional at this.
Well, I know.
I had to keep up with your pace. Um,
But yeah, I mean that was kind of the end of that thought. Just, there's so much coverage and things going on down in Soham that people just don't, really aren't privy to up here. And I try as hard as I can to incorporate that into my reporting and to focus on that when I can. But, my beat just doesn't always afford that for me, I guess.
so when you were working at Kmart, it was primarily focused on Soham?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, that was the thing
Yeah.
is, sometimes I would talk about something that happened. If we ever talked about crime in Eureka, people would freak out, because they don't want to hear about that. They don't want to hear crime in Eureka, Arcata. They really didn't want to hear about anything, nor, oh my gosh, they identified what Southern Humboldt was. And this was, like I said, this group of what I would call nicely inflammatory and very rude individuals who wanted the best for the station, but they went about it in a pretty destructive and rude way. But they defined Soham as basically like a 100 square mile area from Redcrest down to Laytonville, which is northern Mendo, but that's still, they consider that to be our covering range, and from Shelter Cove to Alder Point, which is a very small area. And, if we're looking at Soham in the late 90s, early 2000s, the timber wars were going on. The reggae wars were going on. There was a lot more going on down there than there is now. And, sure, there's plenty of cannabis coverage. There's that's still happening, and of course, camp was happening in those times too. But there's just not quite as much. And we had this big meeting where everyone is, going to air out their feelings to the news department at the Healy Senior Center. And I was so nervous. I was sweating bullets, and my coworker gave me I don't know, some black rock. I don't know if it was onyx or what, but she's a crystal hippie chick. And she was like, hold this in your left hand and it'll soak up all of the negative energy. I'm like, okay, Brittany, I'll take
I'll
whatever
do
I can
anything.
get.
Yeah.
And so I'm standing there with my rock sweating. It's like the first really hot day down in Soham, probably exactly 4 or 5 years ago now. And I had to just defend myself to this group of people. But after that, we had this one community member, Duff, who came up in front of this group, and he had a copy of, I think it was The Independent, and he shows it to the group. He's like, so you think that, our news department that produces a 30-minute news broadcast every day that is 90% local news, you're criticizing them when look at our local newspaper, which is, I think it's only produced weekly. The headline was Garberville Chamber of Commerce changes logo. And, the point being, there's not always a plethora of news, and I'm not going to go out there and make news. I will investigate things and do whatever, but man, putting together a 30-minute news broadcast, you're editing audio, you know what it's like.
Oh, it's killer.
It's crazy, getting in the office at 10 o'clock and 6 o'clock, you better have 28 to 30 minutes of news or else. And there was only one time when I couldn't produce a newscast, and I cried in the general manager's office, and she's like, it's okay, we'll put a special on. But people freak out if that happens,
Is that like a daily stressor where you have to have that every day, that segment?
At the newsroom, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in at KMUD. Yeah, 30-minute news broadcast Monday through Friday.
So you have to find something.
Yes. And then at the Times Standard, we moved our printing press to Chico, I think only a couple months before I started. And so that went from, I believe the deadline used to be 11 p.m. The paper has to be finished by 11 p.m. It'll get printed and it goes out the next day. Our deadline is now 2:30. So I start my day at 9, and 2:30, got to have 2 stories,
That's crazy.
It's crazy. It's a crazy turnaround
Yeah.
because, I've kind of worked on my, tactics to, no, as soon as I know what I'm reporting on, I call everyone I can. And then sometimes it gets crazy because too many people call you back. And I'm like, where do I put all these interviews? But, sometimes people just don't call you. You can call as many people as you want. Think of every source that you can think of, but sometimes people just don't call you. They're in meetings, they want to talk to you, whatever, So it's really challenging. And that's, these are the things that people that don't create news don't really realize,
Yeah, I had no idea.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
fucking nuts.
It seems It almost seems counterintuitive. It seems like you would miss so much information having a hard deadline like that. I
Yeah,
mean, 9 to 2:30. That's like a 5.5 hour window to
right,
try to fully encompass this story that you just got.
right.
And what
Yeah,
if, like you said, what if somebody doesn't get back to you and you don't get their side, or
right.
X, Y, or Z happens and you don't get that side of the story, and now you're missing that whole piece, and
Right.
you're just running with the story.
Yeah, and I can add some things into the online version, but it won't make it into the print version, you
And if
know?
that's what all some people see,
Exactly.
what do you
And
do?
yeah, and sometime and then, it's like the county of Humboldt did not reply to the time standard ahead of our news deadline. And then that looks makes them look like pretty bad, because when it says like they refused to comment or did not comment, it makes it look like they didn't want to. And I mean, I always say they were not did not comment ahead of deadline, and I take that out when I can, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating sometimes because there are so many stories. I did a story last week about the terrible fish kills in the Klamath, and how the Klamath Basin there's no water. There's absolutely no water. And so this perspective that we hear here 90% of the time is no water, no salmon. That's really affecting fishermen, really affecting tribes, and all the cultural relevance that salmon have. I mean, not more than relevance, they're intrinsically tied. And so that is a huge detriment to tribes. And just not to mention, these are flows that are affecting other things in our environment. But upstream, agriculture folks, ranchers, farmers are freaking out because they don't have enough water to irrigate. So they're pointing fingers at each other, and everyone's really, really mad. And everyone, farmers, fishermen are exactly the same in that they don't get salaries. If they don't have a harvest, they're fucked,
Yeah.
And so I was very fortunate that I was able to get two stories, a couple or two perspectives, one on each side, and then also some tribal perspectives. But I wanted to build it out more because there's really something to be said here, and I was really pleased that I was able to kind of round out the story with both these people that one of them told me, we're friends, but this is kind of putting a strain on our relationship because we have these different people that we're fighting for, basically. And, in the end, they both came together because I just sort of asked them, what would this is obviously a really inflamed time for everyone. And so what would you kind of say to the other? What would you ask of people during this time as we kind of navigate this really horrific time? And they both called for compassion and understanding and patience, and just to recognize that we're all people, and that was as good of a, sum up as I could ask for. But I mean, I wanted more time on that story. I want more time on all my stories. And, after deadline, I have this very small window during the workday where I can talk about, where I can research for the next day or research more long-term stories. That's not enough time.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do an investigation right now, and it's fruitless. I mean, nothing is happening. I don't feel like I have adequate time to do it. It's so challenging. And then you see, you know, the Lost Coast Outpost, and it seems so much easier for them because they're not, I'm sure they have their own struggles, but they're not worried about a print deadline. They can. I get the idea because I'm friends with a few of those folks over there, but their schedules are more flexible, and because they can just post it and it's everywhere, But we don't have this. We have a very different struggle, and it's really challenging for us.
Yeah, understandably so. I mean, especially with the salmon problem in the Klamath, like that is
Hmm.
such a big issue, and to try to unpack that in one day
Right,
or even a day and a half if you have that much time, like that's insane. Like that's
right.
a challenge that's too big. I mean, you'd need to talk. I mean, ideally, you'd want to talk to way more people and to
Hmm.
really unpack that. And it's just I never realized that you guys have that hard of a deadline where
Hmm.
it's no, this is the time you have to cover this, and if you don't finish it, you don't finish it. Like you need to wrap it up.
Right.
Does that get I mean, you must get so frustrated with that. I would lose my mind doing
Yeah.
that. I'd be like, "No, there's more to this. I need to get the rest of it." Like how
Right. I mean, man, I fought for overtime before, but
is the
overtime.
reason is the reason that that's not there at Lost Coast? Sorry to interrupt. Is the reason that's not there at Lost Coast because they're just online, so they don't have to worry about a print
Yeah, I
deadline?
think so. I mean, I think that there is I certainly can't speak for them, but I would guess, Ryan Burns and I both cover supervisors meetings, and I got to get out, and he does his is structured differently. He usually
Hmm.
does a roundup, so it's just covering like one story, but a bunch of little stories on these different items of or discussions that happened. And I usually do, covering where from 1 to 4 items from the supervisors meetings, and those are all individual stories. And I have to get out at least 2 of those stories by, 2:30, 3 at the latest, and so Ryan usually he seems to put the story out usually that evening or early the next day.
Okay.
So, it seems like their priorities just get it out as soon as you can, but, he's not working up against a deadline. I know he has before because I know he used to work at the Time Standard as well, but yeah, I mean, I it seems like they have a more lax attitude about it, and I wish that we had that, but they also have more eyeballs than anyone else in the county. So,
Wow. That's just, I mean,
and then the North Coast Journal, I mean, they do amazing investigative pieces, and I don't even know what their process is like, but they're a weekly, so that certainly helps. And they post breaking stuff on their website, but I'm envious of both of them that they're able to do such astounding investigative work because I just I don't have the time for it,
yeah.
I try to make time, but it's not that simple. And I mean, Ryan and Thad just make it look easy because they're such talented writers.
So how does it work then if you have like a retraction or something, or some more information comes up that is like really pertinent to the story that you wrote? Is there any kind of like callback to relook at it? I guess if
Um,
you did like an investigative piece or something and something really important came out, it was like, okay, we have to do something about that. How
um,
does that play out?
well, I mean, I would correct the online version, but I don't know. I guess I haven't really encountered that.
Luckily, knock on
Yeah,
wood,
yeah,
right?
not yet, but yeah, it seems usually it's it says in the story they didn't respond. And then if it's a big enough deal, I would probably do an update
Mm-hmm.
or kind of a follow up story or hang on to that information until um, I did a follow up or something like that. So yeah, but I've never really encountered that it was like a make or break the story kind of
Yeah.
situation.
I mean, it's understandable why, 'cause, I mean, especially now, people get so frustrated with, the news and all
Hmm.
this fake news that you hear rolling around.
Hmm.
Yeah, you roll your eyes.
Hmm.
It's crazy, but it makes, I mean, it's hard, especially if you're the person who got that first copy, right?
Hmm.
And then you don't see the follow up or you don't see that added information and you're like, well, what the hell? What are we doing
Yeah,
here, guys? Like, oh, you only had 5 hours to do this. Okay, well, I didn't know that, but still, like,
right.
wouldn't it be better to take more time to actually get the full story?
I
That just
know.
seems
Yeah,
like
but
not
I
a
mean,
good business model to
no, and
do.
it's I mean, it's that, and then, it's the battle between, taking longer to do a more investigative report, or we need to
Covering
get
more.
this out now because
Yeah.
we want to compete with whoever else it is, which competing with Lost Coast Outpost or even the North Coast Journal is futile. I mean, it doesn't even matter to me. I mean, I'm also not competitive at all, really. So that certainly doesn't help, but my editors are, and I take their direction and try to get things out as quickly as I can. But yeah, I mean, it's people complain about not following up a lot, just across the board. All people do. And we cover so many things on a day to day. There are some legacy issues, right? Like the Klamath dam removal. That's something I've covered since I started at KMUD. So I know that subject pretty well. So that makes writing about it a little bit easier. So when I do, it's not like I'm starting from scratch,
Yeah. You have a
But
little bit more to go off.
right, exactly. So that helps being thorough about it. But, it's like we have these kind of issues that we return to time and time again. But, oh shit, I forgot about that, that thing that happened 3 months ago, that grow that, was raided. And I meant to look into who actually owned it or something like that. I mean, there are so many of those things that someone will remind me about. And I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about that in 4 months,
Yeah, that's old news now.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's kind of the thing too, is people might want to hear about it, but unless there's a hook, it's kind of hard to report on. So unless there's a reason, why does this matter right now? It's really hard to talk about it or to get my editors on board as well, because I could maybe want to go on my own, like, whatever, they want to talk about this, so I'll talk about it. But, when you're out getting your sources, they're like, why are you asking me about this? Like, this doesn't even matter right now. Nobody's talked about this in months. So, yeah, follow-up is also more complicated than I think a lot of people realize.
Mm-hmm. Which you think they would see the success of Lost Coast and be like, oh, maybe we need to adapt our policies and kind of change our structure a little bit. Because, I mean, the Time Standard, like, I mean, print paper or print news especially, I mean, it's dead at this point,
Yeah.
essentially, right? I mean, who
Yeah.
still reads a newspaper?
Old people.
That's
Old
true.
people
That's
and
true.
me, but I don't
Do
actually
you still
really
read a newspaper?
no, not
Oh,
really.
okay, I
I
was gonna
just
say.
I dismantle the paper every day because I get it at my house
Mm-hmm.
and I do the crossword puzzles. Well,
Oh,
I have to do
nice.
the crossword puzzles because I'm not that great at it, but I
Mm-hmm.
try. But
You give it an honest effort.
yeah, so the Times Standard is owned by Media News Group, which is a media conglomerate that owns a ton of newspapers across the United States. I believe Media News Group also owns the San Jose Mercury News, the Santa Cruz Sentinel, I think it is, because I've had stories featured in those papers as well. But we can't change anything here locally, really,
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah.
because it's all up the chain. I mean, that's like getting overtime approved. I mean, it's all these things that none of us, me, my editors, hell, the publisher probably can't change. We have to call some IT person, I think. I'm kind of assuming this, but in Sacramento or something to help us change something on the website if we can't figure out how to do it ourselves. And so, as far as trying to make ourselves more relevant, and the goddamn paywall just pushes more people away. I mean, I send, my friends or family are like, oh, I want to read your stories. And I send them a link and they're like, wait, there's a paywall. And I'm like, well, you should be paying to read my stories. But I also
Yeah, come on,
understand why you're
support me
not
out.
because, like, well, they don't do it,
Yeah.
and sure. So that pushes more people over to Lost Coast Outpost, North Coast Journal, wherever. And I mean, God bless North Coast Journal. I know that this pandemic really took a toll on their operations, having all these advertisers drop out from underneath them. And for the record, I'm not trying to speak for any of these organizations when I mention them. I'm just mentioning passively what I see and my utmost admiration for them. But you know, oh gosh, I don't remember what I was saying about that. But yeah, it's the paywall. It just pushes all these people over there because it's like, well, I can't read it on the Times Standard without paying, but I can go over there and read it for free. So I'll just do that. And it's just as good, maybe even better reporting. So whatever. So that makes it really hard. I hate that freaking paywall, but I get it. But,
It sucks.
I don't see that money really.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
it's
not going to the
God.
people that deserve it.
Yeah, corporate media, man, it sucks. It makes newspapers, makes us even less relevant. Pushes us out of the business.
Does it feel like, in your opinion, where you're so close to this field, does it feel like journalism's kind of gone downhill?
Um,
Like real journalism.
yes. I mean, on the whole, sorry, I just like splashed some
You're
truly in
fine.
my eye. But I guess
Or I mean, has it
it's
always been this way?
no, I mean, I think that people do not care as much about the content they're getting, right? Because we're all the people, I mean, not me, but people our age, people now in 2021 read their news on Facebook. They read what
Yeah.
people are sharing. They read,
It's all clickbait.
yeah. And so most people, it does not seem, are necessarily seeking meaningful journalism. Like I have my aunt who is a very educated woman. We do not politically align, but she was talking to my dad. She was saying how impressed she is that, I'm such an objective reporter. And I mean, I take that as a compliment every time I hear it, but I'm also like, it's not that hard. It's really not. You just try to talk to as many people as you can and do not put your opinion in a story. But she was telling my dad, she's impressed by that, but also that she doesn't know how to seek out legitimate or objective news sources. And I'm like, I mean, lady, you're like 65 years old. How do you not know how to do that? I mean, You go to the sources that historically, for her when she was younger, that were always legit. New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, Chronicle, whatever, these just historic institutions that have always been there, that are trustworthy because they've stood the test of time. So if you're talking about reading something on, like, I don't know, something that has weird website formatting or something, it's probably not reliable. If there's too many bright colors in the banner or whatever, it's probably not right. But so in that sense, people just want clickbait. They want quick articles that are, it's like eating fast food, satisfies your itch or whatever. But in another sense, because of technology and how we have evolved, and that people are so much more into these little niche ideas and things that they want to know more about, there is so much more delving into that, and people doing more research and people talking about more of those things. So, there are pros and cons to it. I think it's a problem for people to be too into any one subject or one website that they get all of their news or whatever from. I think that's really toxic, and we should all be looking at our whole world and, considering other perspectives. But at the same time, that has afforded us, that's the product of the cool thing. That is, there's all these people who want to talk about all these weird things, and we can dig into our little niches. That's amazing. But yeah, it can lead to some really toxic behavior, as we have seen with
Oh yeah.
QAnon rabbit hole, for
Oh yeah.
example.
It's crazy because we have this incredible access to all of this information. You could really learn anything you want to about any situation,
hmm
whether it's what's going on right now with Palestine and Israel, whatever. You could literally get all the information you
hmm
want on that. But we don't do that. We only hit that surface level, if
Yeah.
that.
Scroll on Instagram,
Yeah, we'll just catch a headline. Oh, this
hmm
is happening, and then we'll take that as gospel and run and tell 20 other people,
Right.
oh, this is. I've done that. You just see that little blurb, and you're like, oh, I didn't know this was
Yeah.
happening, and you
Oh
tell
my
somebody else,
God.
yeah, and they're
Yeah.
like, that's not true,
Right.
and it's like, oh shit, I just told 5 other people, and they're gonna run with that.
Right. Yeah.
And
And then it's like
what do you do?
telephone too, which,
Yeah,
like,
and you never
someone
go
tells you and then it
back.
changes, and and all of a
Yeah,
sudden someone's like,
the world's
yeah,
ending.
a cheese sandwich invaded Palestine,
Yeah, it's like, what? That's why they're fighting? Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know
Oh
that.
God, cheese.
But I mean, it's sad.
Yeah.
It's really sad. It feels like with the power of all this information, we've almost declined. We've gone backwards instead
hmm
of using it and doing something meaningful with it and actually checking our sources, because
hmm
we can now in a really significant way, and looking at, okay, who wrote this article? Okay, who backed that company? Okay, why would they say this? Let me go check this other site that might say something different. Let me go look around and see, is everybody thinking this way? Are there multiple opinions on this point?
hmm
But we don't do that. I mean,
No.
how many people, we joked about it, but how many people actually only get their news from Facebook or from
Right.
Instagram?
Right. Or just a single source,
Yeah.
you
Or
know?
just CNN. If you
Yeah.
just watch CNN, it's not good for you. Just like if
No.
you just watch Fox News, it's not good.
Right.
You're not getting the full picture.
Right. If you just listen to Democracy Now!, not good. Also very depressing. I did a lot of that during my drive time when I was a K-Mud. Holy cow, how many times I cried in my car.
Oh no.
But yeah, any one source, because, sources are, as much as I want to think that there is some way to be actually completely objective, sorry to say to my, like, 18-year-old, idealistic self, there isn't. We all have our own biases that we inject in things, but, as reporters, it's our duties to, do everything we can to be as objective and factually based as we can. And right now we're in a climate where people just want to be spoon-fed what they want to hear. They want to hear other people that agree with them and, share their perspectives. And it's, can be like a misery loves company kind of thing. And, we all agree on the same thing. We're all fired up about the same thing. And, that can lead to good things like, protesting or, coming together for an effort and trying to create change. Or it can be just like going down this dismal, again, QAnon rabbit hole, for example, where it just, spins out of control. But I mean, you know, I it's so frustrating because as someone who strives to be as objective as I can as a reporter, I believe in my readers. I believe in the consumers of the media I create. And I believe that, if I present them with the facts, then they're like, I want to know more about that. So I'm going to go read about that. Or they doubt something I say. They look it up and see that it's true, but just that by presenting them with the facts that they can develop their own opinions. And I believe that in my heart of hearts, but it doesn't seem to always go that way,
Yeah, especially now, where
Yeah.
everything is so politically charged. I mean, the idea that you're going to get unbiased information on something, especially if it involves Trump
Hmm.
or Biden or anything political right now. The idea,
COVID at
yeah,
all.
COVID, the vaccine, there's no way it's going to be unbiased. And it's so sad saying that.
Right.
But it's just, everyone is just so in their camp right now that
Hmm.
they can't see the other side. They can't accept any information that doesn't align with what they fundamentally believe. And
Right.
that's what it is. We are all attached to this fundamental belief, whatever side you're on. That's your side. And if you step out of that side, it's gonna get ugly.
Right.
So
You're
you
a
better,
traitor
yeah, you
or
better
you're
walk the line.
wishy-washy or
Yeah.
whatever,
Or you don't actually believe, or you don't believe in science, or you don't have all the information, or whatever slanderous thing they're gonna
Hmm.
throw at you just to discredit what you're saying.
Right. Right.
I mean, how do you combat that?
Yeah. I saw something really fascinating. I just saw it from Vice. And Vice can be very sensational, of course, but regardless, I hope this is true because it's insane. No, I don't hope it's true, but there was an article about how all these anti-maskers are now starting to wear masks because they're afraid of vaccine shedding from the people who have the vaccine. So they're
What
worried
is
that
vaccine shedding?
I don't even know. I mean, this is obviously one of the myriad of terms that has been created from COVID,
Yeah,
some of
they're
them
just making
legitimate.
shit up
But
now.
yeah, it's just like, what is vaccine shedding? So I'm just imagining like little vaccine dandruffs that are just like
Just
falling
falling
off
off
my
your body.
body. And
Oh
the anti
man.
vaxxers are like, oh, get away from me. I mean, what is that? Like,
Yeah.
what is, and I mean, I don't want to go into the QAnon rabbit hole, but this is something I've been reading a lot about recently.
QAnon?
I've been in
Oh,
the
good,
rabbit
because
hole.
I don't know anything about
Oh my
QAnon.
God, I am not equipped to try to explain it, but there are documentaries that can.
Okay.
And I just listened to a podcast that was about the wellness to QAnon pipeline, which is fascinating.
I have no idea what that
I
is.
mean, it's, uh, I mean,
Everybody I've talked to, they said it's too big. Like I don't know how to put
no,
it
it
into
is.
words. It's
Well,
just
that's
too.
why it's crazy. So QAnon is, oh my gosh, anyone listening, like, forgive me if I don't explain this
Go look
properly,
it up
but
for yourself.
yeah, go look it
Yeah.
up. There's a great
This is just the
documentary
quiz
on Hulu
notes.
about it. But basically, QAnon, Q is supposed to be this, many people believe, some kind of CIA government informant, insider person, or used to be. Some people believe it's Donald Trump himself. And this started, when did the Q drop start? I think in 2017. And this person named Q would post, I think did it start on 4chan or
I think
8chan?
it started on, yeah, one of those. Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's Q because he had Q clearance, right? That was
yes,
the Q. Okay,
exactly.
okay.
Yeah. So
Which
he
is like
starts posting these.
higher than top secret.
Yeah,
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 okay.
yeah, I think so. So yeah, I wasn't clear on that part,
Yeah.
but yeah, so just posting these things about, the storm is coming is, a big one, of course, but just these predictions of things that are going to happen. And basically that Donald Trump is the savior and essentially a prophet that is going to save us from all of this destruction. And he's going to take down the quote unquote deep state and all these Democrats that are killing our babies and drinking their blood because they're in a satanic cult and going to take them down. And we're going to live in this, beautiful Valhalla of a society, right? And it's, that's crazy. But this conspiracy, people, it radicalized people. And it's still, I mean, I just do not understand how. So, because the people who are now QAnon supporters, largely, I would say, they do not go to, I mean, 8chan is gone now. Now it's 8kun, I believe. They don't go to 8kun because I've only been on 4chan like once, and that is a horrifying
It's a
place. It
cesspool.
is an absolute
Yeah.
cesspool. I mean,
It's like the
truly.
darkest part of the internet that's not like the dark web.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit. I mean, yeah, it is fucked. I mean, it's full of racist, anti-Semitic, I mean, God, that's putting it politely. Like,
Yeah.
there is,
Yeah.
just so much is a true cesspool, just disgusting. And so there's so many people, which I mean, I think that says so much about who was looking at QAnon when it first started, right? It was people who are on that website. And I mean, I'm not trying to throw all the people who are into 4chan, 8chan, 8kun, whatever under a bus. Because, my fiance, for example, he would go on the music boards all the time. He's not a psycho, but, you just have to think about who is absorbing this information,
Yeah.
right? But as time has gone on, it has become, I don't even know how it really started to leach out into the general public. I'm kind of forgetting that part of the documentary, but it does, and people really grab onto it. I mean, I didn't really hear about it, um, you know, eh, in the mainstream, and that was the only access I had to it, is when I started hearing about it in the mainstream until a year and a half ago, probably. So, and it had been around for quite a bit of time before then.
Oh, had
And
it really? Oh,
yeah,
I thought it just started up with COVID and everything.
no, no. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
I think that's when it started, like,
Gaining
making its way to the
popularity.
forefront. Yeah, because
Hmm.
people are sitting at home and they read an article or whatever,
They're
and
just online
they just, I
24/7
mean, that
because
was
of it.
really when it blew up, is because people are at home and not doing anything. Think of recently retired people, think about people working from home. I mean, it just radicalized people, and it's not like it's just far right or just, conservative folks or big Trump supporters that got into it. This is, conspiracy folks already, your Bigfoot people, aliens, 9/11, jet fuel can't melt steel beams, those folks. Um, and then, like I said, I listened to this great podcast, Maintenance Phase, and they were talking about the wellness to QAnon pipeline. And this kind of taps into anti-vax, and that can be a part of some of the wellness communities. And so, I mean, God, as I'm explaining this, I'm like, wait, no, I have to go back because it's confusing. But, you know, QAnon somehow, this conspiracy was able to tap into all these things. So people who are anti-vax, some of them are QAnon supporters, and it's not intrinsically tied to what QAnon drops are. It's just that this conspiracy that is QAnon has, like, just gobbled up all these other conspiracies. So it is so much more than just what it was initially. Now it comprises all these different things. And I mean, has tapped into I don't know if you remember the Wayfair conspiracy last summer.
That's the one where they were supposedly selling children in closets, right? And the
Yeah.
SKU number was like that of if you Googled it on some Russian site
Mhm.
or something, it went to a picture of a child.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was called, like, Emily's Dresser or
Yeah.
something, but it's like $22,000.
Yeah.
I can't speak to any of those price points. That's
It
crazy,
was
but
insane.
yeah, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so crazy. And so there's a very strong connection with, QAnon and tapping into, like, stay-at-home moms, just moms in the Midwest, whatever, and they're like, human trafficking. Oh my God, save the kids. And it's like, this other podcast I listen to, You're Wrong About. They talk a lot about moral panics, and we're absolutely in a moral panic on multiple levels right now. Whether it's COVID, or QAnon or human trafficking. I mean, human trafficking obviously is a terrible issue.
Yeah, I
I
don't think anybody's supporting
No, I
that.
don't think so either.
Yeah.
And if you do, well, you're a psycho.
Yeah.
But how prevalent it is remains unclear in many ways. But I mean, these groups, blow it up and make it seem as though, you're not doing anything. Our government's not doing anything. And I do not know in what ways they are or they are not. But, it is just preying on people's fears. And if, again, no one wants children or people to be trafficked. So the idea that there are people out there and, QAnon is your savior. And he's, these people are going to stop it. And you know who's doing it? It's the deep state. And they're also, these blood-sucking Democrats. It's crazy. And I mean, it's not unlike the moral panic, the satanic panic of the 1980s. It's not unlike any other moral panic that we've experienced as a society. And, you know, I just went on a wild tangent about that. But I mean, these are things I think are really important, is to, I guess bringing it back to journalism is being critical of the information that you're looking at. Of course, looking it up, fact checking things, but also, being aware of history and how history tends to repeat itself. And, we could probably avoid a lot of mistakes if we looked a little bit more into
Oh,
how we had dealt
absolutely.
with similar things before.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing is when you look backwards, you realize we're kind of fucking up in a lot of the same ways.
Hmm.
And we just keep doing it. And it's like, oh, well, maybe if we paid attention to the fact that this happened, it would stop happening.
Right.
Right? But the Q thing, it's a it's weird because it taps into something primal in people. This
Hmm.
primal desire to, first, you're in a group, and so
Hmm.
you have something. And second, you're fighting this cause where you're going against the bad people, the deep state.
Hmm.
You're going against these people who are doing something that, like we said, that everyone can pretty much agree on is bad. And so you feel a power when you're doing that. You feel like you have a purpose. And I think a lot of people don't have that,
Hmm.
especially now. I feel like a lot of people feel like they're just floating. And so believing in that, it's like that's their reason to move forward in life is
Hmm.
because they're helping and they know something nobody else knows. They're like in this weird niche where it's like, "Oh, you don't know who Q
Right.
is? Let me tell you, because
Right.
it's crazy and you're
Right.
going to want to join because why wouldn't you? Are you a piece of shit? You don't want to save
Right.
these kids? You don't want to stop them
Right.
from they're drinking some spinal fluid or something from these kids, right? That's
Or
the
no,
thing.
yeah, what's the
I can't.
I feel like the term I mean, I only knew it as it being in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is the oh my
I
gosh,
can't
what
think
is
of the
it?
name of
Yeah,
it.
it's like from some gland, the pineal gland.
Yes, and
Yeah,
it's only in
whatever.
children.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, what's it called? Yeah, but that's fucking
it's
crazy
insane. And
for
the
the record.
Pizzagate that they're all just in the
Yeah.
basement of these like
Yeah. Well,
what
it doesn't
what?
have a basement, but then some people are like, well, no, it's behind a door. And of course you're going to say that. But
Yeah,
like, my God. And the tragedy of it is, when you're going down this rabbit hole and then it's like you get to this breaking point and then your family member is like, that's not true. And it's kind of freaking me out that you're going on this rabbit hole and they're like, you don't understand. And then it's like, that's the breaking point. And those people are beyond reach. I mean, I've read so many articles that are talking about how the whole conspiracy has totally torn apart families. I mean, I can't talk to my dad anymore. Me and my husband's marriage is failing. My sister won't take my calls anymore. And I'm the only person that has tried to be there for her while she's fallen down this rabbit hole. I mean, I try really hard to be understanding of all the weird things that people like to get into. But when it comes to the sanctity of truth and information, I have a very low tolerance
yeah,
for it, for bullshit. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, again, it's tragic because I hate to hear about people being torn up over things like this, especially something which to me, just on its face, just seems fucking crazy,
yeah.
you
It's not
know?
like it's partly believable. Like the JFK thing. Like you could make an argument that
Sure.
there's some shady shit with that. But Q, it's like how do you? Yeah, the government's done some fucked up things and they've lied and some conspiracies. Yeah, you could make a case, but but I mean, isn't there a line? Like, don't isn't there some point that we hit and we're like, okay, this is just too much.
Yeah.
Like the scope of this is just
Right.
it's
I
not
mean,
quite
yeah,
there.
take like flat Earth, for example, which again, that's one of those
I don't
things
get
that is
that
just
one.
like
It's like,
spinning in the face of science and all
yeah,
the work that we have done. Like, we have come to this point for a reason. There's still so many things we do not know, but
we know that
we
one.
have known that
Yeah,
one and
yeah,
we've
we know
been
that
in
one.
space. But of course, you probably don't think that's true either to these people. But, oh gosh, what was it? It was flat earthers. It was just I keep losing my train of thought here because I'm thinking of way too many things at once. But oh my gosh, I can't
That
believe I
just
was nervous about talking. I'm like, oh God, I'm never interviewed, but I also have a lot of opinions,
yeah,
as
no,
you can
this is
tell.
great. You get into like a groove, right? And then
Yeah.
you're just going. It's like, oh, what are we? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I lost my train of thought about flat earthers,
it's
but
just
it's
those
just
conspiracies.
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just like there's got to be a point where you say, okay, right? I mean,
Right.
you gotta just almost roll your eyes a little bit because it's
Right.
like, okay, yeah, you had me a little bit, but then
Hmm.
I mean, all these connections, you're just grasping at straws that just aren't there. I mean, there's
Right.
nothing there's nothing to grab.
Yeah, I mean, some of these things, it's like, God, have you, like, when was the last time you slept? Like, sounds like you
And
went on, like,
that's like a real thing though, is they get
yeah.
so wrapped up into it that
Mm-hmm.
it's all consuming. And
Right.
how do you pull somebody back? I mean, how if they're deep into like QAnon or flat Earth, how do you bring them back from that cusp?
Yeah,
Like, there's not really a like.
they talked about it on the podcast I was just listening to just the other day, and I mean, the only thing that they really suggested was kind of, just show people that, don't break off ties completely, right? Show, say it's your sister, still be there for her, try to like still have conversations with her that are completely unrelated to any of this, and try as best you can just to not talk about it. And if it does come up, just to like let it slide, don't pass judgment, because God willing, she's going to get over this and she's going to see that this is not true, and you will still be the person that's there for her, that she can come to and find solace and grounding. So I guess, just try to be a patient. And I mean, it's hard.
It's really
I
hard.
can't imagine. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a ton of family that is, one of my uncles kind of dabbles in the QAnon conspiracies, but he is, I wouldn't say, I mean, I don't know. My dad talks to him much more than I do. So it doesn't seem like he's fallen down that rabbit hole. But, I told my dad, like, if you were an aggro Trump supporter and in QAnon like your brother is, we would have a very hard time relating to each other. And it would be hard for me to have a relationship with you. And, of course, he was really shocked when I said that. And I'm like, I mean, think about the way we talk to each other now. We talk about politics. We, all the things that we're talking about now. My dad is wonderful guy. I mean, he taught me, like his parents taught him, question everything, And so I've always really felt that way. And, I mean, it's just I don't have a huge problem talking to people who have differing perspectives than me, but when those perspectives are perspectives that racist, anti-Semitic, sexist, transphobic, whatever it may be, when you hold those ideals and those ideals are things that hurt people I love, then it becomes a different issue. You're defending keeping kids in cages at the border. You're defending these things, and I have a serious problem with that. And so, I mean, I can take it in stride with people I don't talk to all the time, but I mean, so it's more complicated than just being there for that person. I mean, it's a big ask, but I think if we could, I wish I had more patience in that way. We're working on it every day, but I think that's really one of the only things that you can kind of do is just hold space for that person. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard, right? Because especially if they're so far gone,
Hmm.
where the idea of questioning it is just lost.
Yeah.
Like there's no skepticism in it anymore. It's no, this is real. Like
Yeah.
this is full blown. And I mean, I would want to say that conversation and continuing to talk to them would be a good thing, because it seems like that would really be the only way to try to bring them back, is to just continue to have conversations with them
Hmm.
and maybe be like, well, here's this other thing that kind of goes against this part of it. Like, what do you think about that? Or, okay, here's some other. The problem is you could go on YouTube and find a video that confirms whatever.
Anything.
Yeah, like you could be a flat earther in 12 minutes after watching a
Right.
video.
I've seen that video and I've seen that happen to my friends when that conspiracy just sort of reared its ugly head.
Yup.
I'm like, you really think from this weather balloon video and that it's a fisheye? So you say that's why the earth is curved, but there's no curvature of the earth, that's why? That's crazy. And I reminded that friend of that, and he was very embarrassed when I let him know. I won't say his name, but
Yeah.
he was very
Yeah.
embarrassed.
I've gone down a few rabbit holes, and luckily I never went deep enough where I couldn't check myself and be like, okay, like,
Hmm.
remember, we're on YouTube right now
Hmm.
watching
Right.
whatever we're watching. Like, let's reel it back a little bit. But
Hmm.
if you don't have that inner voice, or if you don't have someone that's you're kind of talking to in the
Hmm.
process of it, you can slip,
Yeah.
and it's hard to get back up.
Right.
It's really hard to get back up.
Well, and again, especially something like QAnon, that is this monster of a
It's all
conspiracy with
consuming.
all these tentacles that are reaching out into all these different things. I mean, a conspiracy theory that latches onto human trafficking, sex trafficking, like, the deep state Democrats, I don't even know what, CIA conspiracies. It is latched on to all these things. And that's something that, I mean, in my opinion, I've never seen before. I mean, maybe there are other conspiracy theories that people could point to that have a similar effect, but I've never seen anything like that before,
Yeah.
So maybe we don't even know how to deal with that. And I mean, think about where we are in the world of the internet. I mean, we've only had the internet in our homes for 30 years now. I mean,
Yeah, it's
maybe
still in
more.
its
Yeah, it's
infancy.
still new. And I mean, social media, the creation of these things, I mean, that is still so new, and our brains are just trying to keep up and figuring out how to digest this information, what to do with it. And I think younger and then older folks are especially susceptible to it. I mean, I'm not sure how old you are. I'm 27,
I'm
but
23.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like, you're still right there that, I had dial-up internet in my house when I was a kid. I remember that, I used to play CD-ROM games. I didn't have, internet video games. I didn't get a smartphone until I was in college, so I think about how kids approach that now. And it's like, God, 8-year-olds are on TikTok. That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Um,
TikTok itself is
is
crazy to
is
me.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and TikTok is a wild world. I refuse to download the app.
Me too. Thank you. Oh
I'll
man, I
encounter
can't do
some.
it.
I
Yeah,
know.
I
I
just
have these
can't.
friends that are like, I'm obsessed. You got to do it. I'm
They
like,
watch it
no,
all the. I have friends
no.
that send me the videos because I won't download it. I'm like, how often are you on this? And
Right.
they're like, oh, just all the time. And
All
I'm
the
like,
time. And
that's
they're like,
kind of
but
a
there's a
problem.
TikTok for that. It's
It's
like,
oh my
and I
god.
mean, yeah, I have friends that are like, well, you love plants. Like, you can watch TikToks about gardening. I'm
Yeah,
like, I don't want
I
to.
don't have the time
I
for
don't, yeah,
this.
I don't have
Yeah,
the time for it. I'm doing real research and things, or, look, Facebook stalking people I went to high school with. I don't know. I'm old school. I still stalk people in that venue, No,
mm,
I don't, not really, but every once in a while. But then, then you have older folks who this internet world is still new. And I mean, we see the shit they post on Facebook and it's like,
oh my
oh,
god.
Deborah, come
Oh my
on,
god.
cringe.
It's like everybody can see this, right? Like this is not
Right.
a diary.
Right. I mean, yeah, I remember there's this Facebook page I started following years ago and it was called Okay Jim Haha. And it's just like all these old people posts that just posting like very like sweet, naive, like silly things that just like only old people post on Facebook. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh. But yeah, I mean, you have like these two groups, which, in my view, are particularly susceptible for those reasons to being radicalized, right? Or to being just vulnerable to misinformation because they aren't familiar, either are too familiar or are already in their weird little niche at the age of 12, or they're, old and they're used to consuming media in this other way. So then they think that, this Facebook article is equivalent to, a reputable news source, and it's not. And they're like, whoa, that's crazy. Deep state,
This
and
must be true.
has to be true. Someone's name is attached to it and they wrote it. It must be true. They're a
Yeah.
journalist.
That's the problem, especially where if you came from print news where it's finite in the sense that you can't change it. Like nobody can alter that
Mhm.
unless they print a retraction or print
Mhm.
another copy. But that copy is that.
Mhm.
And it meant something. Like I couldn't just print a newspaper in my house and go do whatever back in the day. Like but now with social media anybody can write
Right.
anything.
Right.
And if you take that as gospel, it's gonna get ugly pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could go into any one of the stories that have ever been posted to the Time Standard and I could edit it and say some crazy shit if I wanted to. Am I going to do that? No, because I have self-restraint, even though I like a
That would
good
be
joke.
crazy
But I
though.
do not, I mean, information is truly like in my heart. I mean, the truth and sanctity of information. People who know me are like, oh God, is he shut up? But I mean, really, it means so much to me. So I would never. But I mean, sometimes it's like when you're driving and you are like, what if I just
There's a
drove into
clip.
that lane?
Yeah,
Or,
yeah.
it's like that thing like, what if I just put a swear word in there, or
Just for
just
fun.
something just for fun,
There's a term for that. Like standing on the abyss and thinking about jumping.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can't think
yeah,
of the name of it right now, but
yeah, I totally know
they've
what you're
coined
talking
it.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and what a weird phenomena that is that your brain's just like, jump.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
It'll be okay.
Yeah, you should do it. I don't know why.
Yeah,
You should
just
do it. It
yeah.
looks really far.
Be a good jump. You'd have
Yeah.
some time to contemplate life on the way down.
Yeah, fucking A.
I don't know. I'm really worried about the generation below us. I'm really worried about them just because even with the limited amount of access to the internet and social media that I had growing up, like I can't imagine being in middle school now and dealing with
I
TikTok and
know.
Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and all these things and trying to like
Filters.
yeah, and
The
find your
advent of
place.
filters,
Like
man. I mean, speaking as a female, that like, what that would have done to my fucking self-esteem as a young person. I mean, as if, middle school isn't already just putting everyone through the ringer. I mean, it's a nightmare. I
yeah.
mean, middle school is easily the worst time I've ever had in my
Oh
life,
yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
you have no idea who you are, what life is, what your body's going through. You're
Right,
just like hit with all this at one time. And you've got all these other kids that are going through it and being douchebags and trying to find
right.
themselves too. And it's not a good mix. It's
No.
really not.
Yeah, it's terrible. It's like, oh, well, I guess I'm not friends with you anymore, Chelsea White, because I wear Converse All Stars and you said they're clown shoes.
Oh, that
And
actually, I feel like this actually happened.
that actually happened. And yes, I said your name, Chelsea White.
Oh,
She's not going to
snap.
listen to
Yeah,
this. But
no, yeah.
I mean,
You're
yeah, I
fine.
mean,
You're
going
safe.
from somebody who's like
But that's
best
a real
friend in
thing. That's,
elementary
yeah.
school, and then it's like we walk into middle school and everything is different.
Yeah.
And because
Pressure's
she has
on.
a Roxy jumpsuit on or something, and I can't afford that. So, and I also didn't like pink then. But, I mean, yeah, kids are doing crazy shit. And with the advent of filters, it's like, I mean, for one, there's of course the element of like who has access to what. So, like, my parents can't afford to get me a smartphone, so I can't even enter into that world or conversation or something like that. But I mean, saying that we're all on the same playing field, like, God, what that does to your self-esteem, because you can put on a filter. I mean, what does to my self-esteem, adult self-esteem, You can just, you like have your phone open, you're like, oh, there's me. And then you put the filter and you're like, wow, all of a sudden my face is more sculpted and my skin tone is perfect and my eyebrows are a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I mean, what that does to children, and also, you know, as getting back to the media element, like, I don't know how kids are being coached how to look at media,
I don't think they are.
because
That's the
one of the
problem.
things that I ran into, in journalism school, I had a bunch of really amazing teachers in the journalism department at HSU. Big shout out to all of them. They were amazing. But, they didn't adequately prepare me for what it was like to be a journalist in 2015 when I graduated. I mean, the term backpack journalist was thrown around a lot. Like, basically, that you have to be, as a journalist, you have to be able to record, do video, edit all those things, of course, write, do all these things. But, it wasn't like we didn't actually have like know how to be media savvy, And so that's in journalism school. So just generally, are there classes that kids are going through that kind of teach you how to, look at this, what's the difference between these two articles we see on Facebook? Which one is real? Which one is not? Are they teaching that? I don't know. You know?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I know that they're teaching kids not to cite from Wikipedia, but past that, I think
Bullshit.
it's yeah. Past that, I think it's just an open field, and nobody talks about it, and it doesn't seem like they're interested or they understand the gravity of like what it's setting them up for. I don't know. I don't know why it's not addressed, but I don't think it is.
Yeah. I mean, I have always said this that kind of when I feel like I come to a point in my journalism career uh that I want to move into teaching and I want to be a journalism teacher for middle school or high school students, which sometimes that's just one of those thoughts that is, as much as it's a dream for me, I'm like, oh God, being around middle schoolers and high
It'd be rough.
schoolers, it'd be rough.
Yeah, it'd be
But
rough.
also, oh my gosh, again,
Very
middle school
fulfilling.
was awful.
Yeah.
And I remember so clearly, the teachers who had an impact on me and made me feel okay and seen and, like I was a normal person and, noticed like, hey, you're good at this. keep doing that,
Yeah.
and getting that affirmation from someone that wasn't my parents, which was great that my parents were always extremely supportive of me. But that's huge.
Oh,
And, to
absolutely.
have, you know, for me, especially female role models, that were smart, vibrant, amazing women that made me want to be like that, And so if I could be that or even just a piece of that for any student ever, that's life changing,
Yeah.
So I would love to do that. And then, honestly, in talking about it, I just want to teach kids how to, you know, write a news story or like create a reporter package. Because if you do that, you teach kids these amazing skills, how to interview people, how to write up questions, how to talk to people when you
That's the
might
big
be
thing.
pretty
How to just
nervous.
talk to people
Yeah.
and how to have
Yeah.
an effective, like, be an effective communicator and
Mhm.
more so listen. I don't
Right.
think people, like, I don't know if we used to have it down and we don't now, but listening seems like a really lost art
Mhm.
nowadays. Like, these kids, I mean, especially if all you're doing is texting or
Right.
Snapchatting, like, to sit in a room kind of like what we're doing or even
Mhm.
just out and about and actually talk to someone
Right, because
and
you're
listen
just
to
like,
them.
on your phone while they're talking and like, uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's so surface,
And you miss all the cues. You miss out on all
Mhm.
the body language and all the subtle movements that just aren't you just can't express that over text.
Right.
Like, oh, they text me this. Are they mad at me? Or did I do something
Right. You
wrong?
didn't say LOL after that.
Yeah, what you put a period at the end of your sentence. What is
Right.
did I do something wrong? Like,
Right. I mean, yeah.
what are we doing?
Yeah. And I mean, so it would teach those extremely important skills. Thank you
Yeah.
for humoring me and seeing that
No,
because
I
it's
think that would be
huge.
yeah, I'm not just humoring you. I think that would be invaluable
Yeah.
at
And
that
I mean,
age.
also teaching critical thinking because, you are like, here's your subject. It's up to you to look for information, do your research. And, as you're going through the course or, moving through your story, you're realizing what is valuable and what is not, what is factual and what is not. And, I just think that just the idea of creating a single reporter package and what it takes to go into just to create it, you would learn so many amazing skills, And I mean, even if you created that reporter package over the course of a few weeks, that's what we did in college. That would be totally feasible for middle schoolers. I know it would, just the confidence it would give them to hear themselves on the radio and be proud of something that they created. And, like, I sound like that person on NPR. I mean, wow, and then weaving that in with just more media awareness, like we were just talking about, being more savvy about, how you look at, the critical thinking element, how you look at the information around you and what is true and what is not. I mean, I could talk all day about being a journalist and why it's so important, but I mean, more than it has given me, or I mean, maybe enhanced, but I mean, it's given me these skills to look at the world around me and to be able to better appreciate things, just to look more critically at things and, not take things on surface value and want to dig deeper into some things. I mean, I wish that for everybody. It's a wonderful thing.
That's what people are missing today.
Yeah.
Is that desire to just dig a little deeper, learn something that challenges your ideas and your preconceived notions and just push you to grow as a person. I think is the biggest thing that they're missing out on. Because when you
Hmm.
talk to someone who disagrees with you or you dig past your biases, there's this whole other world out there
Hmm.
of things. Even if you don't agree with them or they reinforce your ideas, at least you're challenging them and you're refining them and you're coming up with
Right.
ways. Oh, there's a hole in this idea. Maybe I need to prod at that just a little bit more. Maybe it's faulty. Or maybe you come up with a way to back it up a little bit more and it's stronger because of that.
Hmm.
Like that makes you a better person.
Right.
I think you're gonna have to do it.
I think I'm
Is
gonna
this
have to
this
do
is the
it.
plan for post time standard?
Maybe not
Maybe
post time standard, but
somewhere down the line.
yeah, that's the plan for like, it's kind of like I'll hit 30, see what I'm doing, see what
Mm-hmm.
I'm up to. But I mean, I'm still very much, best friends with two of my teachers from high school. My art teacher, Deborah Harriman, and my English teacher, Brittany Belden, or Brittany Mason now. She's married, but I still call her Belden. But, and I mean, I was talking to Belden on the phone recently, and she was like, you got to be a teacher. You got to do it. I was thinking about it the other day. You just have to do it. you'd be great at it. And I'm like, oh my God. But sometimes I think would I actually be a good teacher? I mean, I know I have passion in these things I really care about, but could I teach middle schoolers? Could I have that patience? I don't know. I haven't been around teenagers in quite a while for any length of time, let alone trying to teach them something or trying to get them to listen to me. So I don't know. But I mean, I think teachers are the most important people in the world, and journalists
Yeah.
personally, and doctors and,
Yeah, all that
nurses
other
and those
stuff. They're
folks
a
too.
little lower on the
But
totem pole, but they're still up
as far
there.
as feeding the human mind, teachers and journalists are so important, to the and instrumental too in the freedom of our society, and questioning things and calling out the government. I mean, I get all toasty whenever I hear people call journalists, the fourth check on the government, because I firmly believe that journalists are, one of the my publisher John told me, I think it was our very first conversation we had. And I don't remember where this was, but he told me this story. I think I read a report, heard a podcast or a Radio Lab episode about it a long time ago. But there was a small community that lost their local newspaper. And like 6 months, maybe a year after the paper went away, the salaries of the board of supervisors, or like the mayor, the chief of police, doubled.
Oh, God.
Yeah, this crazy, because the journalists aren't there to be there at the meetings and looking through the documents and like, wait, you can't just get a raise. That's crazy,
Yeah.
And so that's huge. I mean, it's not only informing the public, but yeah, watching out for those bad actors and for people that are taking advantage of the public, because they're not always trustworthy. I'm pretty happy with a lot of folks in Humboldt, but also, people need to be called out, and it's my
Yeah.
honor to do it. I
Yeah,
love
that's
it.
cool. It's crazy that they get a vote to increase their own salary. Like, that does not seem like that should be a
I
thing.
know.
Like, what? You know
Right.
what? I think I did a little extra work last year. We're gonna bump the pay scale,
Yeah.
knock it
Yeah.
up
You know what?
just another 20 grand, I think.
Inflation. Huh?
Yeah.
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 I had a few bad investments
I
too.
don't know
I
about
could.
minimum wage or when that was last
Yeah.
raised, but whatever. I mean,
It's crazy.
if they didn't want to
It's
work a minimum wage
crazy.
job, they could just get a job somewhere else, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, bad. I
Yeah.
don't like that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
You know what worries me is I've been feeling the inklings online of people saying that free speech is becoming a problem and that we need to start censoring speech. And that worries me because I recognize where that's going to go.
Right.
And it's not going to be a pretty place.
No. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there are times when I hear people popping off about crazy shit that I'm like, I wish they could not talk.
Mhm.
They shouldn't have a platform. It's terrible. But if you start restricting one person's speech, that is a very slippery slope. And as much as I might not want to hear what this person has to say, and I might be horrified at the way they're influencing people, you can take, for example, our last president. Um, you know, free speech is huge, and I honor it, and I think it is one of the most important things in our society because, without it, I don't know, what are we? Because it's such a slippery slope. So it's like we censor Donald Trump. Then who else do we censor? Do we censor all the other loud people that we don't like? Who's censoring them? Is it the
That's the
left?
thing. Who
So are
gets
we
to
just going to
pick?
censor all of the right? Well,
Yeah.
that's not right. I don't agree with what a lot of those folks have to say about politics, but I certainly agree with some of them on some things, and certainly they should not have that taken away from them, And I mean, that's really scary, and I wish people need to think about the bigger picture. And yeah, I don't even know. I mean, of course, it's just so dependent on the individual situation as to, well, here would be a better way to deal with this or something. But yeah, that is terrifying. It's almost as slippery of a slope as robots and things, which I get really weirded out about technology. I'm like,
Oh,
nope,
really?
it's slippery slope. That's eugenics. I don't know.
Eugenics. That's definitely a crazy thing. Well, it's the problem with censoring speech is, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Is first off, who gets to decide?
Mhm.
Because if it's one side, That's going to be bad. If you
Mm-hmm.
give the power to the government, we know that's not going to
Yeah,
end well.
that's bad.
What, we just let the left censor? I mean, are we just going to censor based on feelings? Oh, this person said
Yeah,
something
and
I
whose
disagree with.
feelings?
What offends you might not
Yeah,
offend me, or
right,
vice versa, or it might
right,
not offend all these people. If it offends one person, is that
right,
enough to censor it?
right,
What if it's got some validity to it and it
right,
strikes some argument that maybe we need to look at?
right,
Do we censor that too? Like,
right,
where do we draw the line? I mean, it's
right,
crazy that people died for this, right? And now we're just gonna ship it away because, yeah, it doesn't make me feel good.
right.
Like, I
Yeah,
don't
which
want it.
that is, I mean, that is, I hate that, like, I don't want to hear it, I mean, we all have to hear things that we don't necessarily want to hear
Welcome
or
to
are
life.
difficult to hear.
Yeah.
This is life, thankfully, we are afforded those rights, to be able to say what we want. And surely there are some people, that have a harder time having the freedom to say those things. That is a problem. That is something that definitely exists. But we have to be careful about that. And I mean, I don't know the history. I mean, now I'm thinking about it. I would like to know more about this, but I'm curious as to where, when the term hate speech was designated or founded. So,
That's
because
interesting.
obviously that would have been, I would imagine, it's, people saying things that are to harm a group of people. That is, I don't know if that is the definition of hate speech, but that is kind of how I would just, say it off the dome. But I mean, there must have been obviously there was legislation or something, a Supreme Court decision that, deemed this is what hate speech is. So that is important. And so I guess those are avenues to sort of deal with those things that we don't like. Although some, could also argue that that is a form of censorship,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's a very different thing when you're in effect threatening someone's life.
Yeah.
That's different. But
But
yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
that's a,
it's crazy. Even with
yeah,
hate speech, part of me is like, yeah, but where do we draw the line with that? I
sure.
mean, yeah, there are some things we all recognize shouldn't be said, but I've talked to people who that list is way longer than where I
Yeah,
would draw it.
sure.
And it's like, okay, well, if they were censoring things, it might get a little ugly. I
Right.
mean, words words have power, and that's one of the beautiful things behind them,
Mm.
is that they allow us to express ideas in really different ways and get points across that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. And when you start pulling words out of your vocabulary for whatever reason,
Mm-hmm.
if it's hate speech or if it just doesn't make you feel good or you don't like how it sounds, whatever, you're limiting your ability to express your thoughts and your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And it might seem like a good idea in the moment, but there's no there's no set line. And even
Right.
if we set a line, somebody's going to come along and want to move it.
Right.
And I just don't think people realize that. Like they hear, "Oh, hate speech," and they're like, "Yeah, that's bad. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's good that we shouldn't promote that. We should get rid of that." But it's like, "Okay, well what is hate speech?
Right.
Just words that make you feel bad?" Because there's a
Right.
lot of words that could be said that would make somebody feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'd classify them all in that category. I just it worries me because I don't think, and it seems like it's a lot of the younger generation, even people my age that are kind of going against free speech.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to tap the brakes. I'm like, guys, you don't know where that leads. I mean,
Right.
look at China.
No.
Do we want to be in that position? I've talked to friends actually who say we should model ourselves more after China because
Oh my
they've really got it
gosh.
down over there. And I'm like, do you know anything about what's going on in China? Because they
Right.
definitely do not. They have it locked down, yeah, but not in any good way.
Right. Yeah. All the videos and things that all the websites you go to on your
Tiananmen
phone,
Square, you're
you
never gonna see
can't.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You cannot access that. And I mean, we don't even know the level of censorship that does happen in the United States because it does. Gosh, what was I listening to? They mentioned a CD. I can't remember who it was. It was like a Tool CD or something. Oh my gosh, it wasn't like System of a Down that's like super political, but it was more it was a lot more mild than that. But it was on this podcast I keep referring to, but
Pretty good podcast.
oh my gosh, no, I'm like so addicted to both of them that I mentioned, they have one of this dude Michael Hobbs is on both of them, and
Mm-hmm.
he's amazing. He's a writer for the HuffPost,
Oh, okay.
and
I'll have to check it out.
he's a delight. I mean, he's people who are all about critical thinking and looking critically at information is just I love those people. But he had said that he was in Australia when whatever the CD came out. So he has the Australian copy and it has the song on it that wasn't allowed on the US version of it because the US government deemed it inappropriate or whatever. So that happens here. It totally does. But I mean, certainly not to take away from your fear of,
No,
what could
yeah.
happen because I mean, so there is a really wonderful resource that you should look at, that everyone should look at, and it's called the World Press Freedom Index. And it is a map that's put together by Reporters Without Borders every year. And it just ranks every country in the world based on their press freedom. And you look at that map, and it tells you an awful lot about the general freedoms of those citizens. So of course, one of the worst is always like North Korea, China, like Saudi Arabia, the countries that you would probably assume that there's, war torn, that they're dictators, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Russia, those countries are not doing good. And, the United States usually ranks around, so one being the best. United States, if I remember correctly, usually ranks around like the 40 to 50 mark.
Wow. I would
Yeah.
have guessed top 10.
No,
Wow.
no, not at all. So who is in the top 10 is, and of course, population has to do something.
Mm-hmm.
Conflict within the country has a piece to do with it. So, like, Iceland is number one occasionally. Probably not a whole lot of conflict in Iceland,
Yeah, they're not
So,
worried about nuking anybody over in
right,
Iceland.
yeah. So I think that's worth mentioning with it. But and then each country you can click, and it kind of gives you a little synopsis as to why this country is rated this way. And maybe it's like this for 2020. I would guess that there would be the U.S. has probably dropped because of protesting, how cops crack down on it. All the crazy shit that was going on in Portland with,
The
unmarked
chop or whatever.
vehicles.
Yeah.
Yeah, unmarked vehicles just scooping up protesters. That's crazy. I mean, so I would be curious as to where the US lands now, but I mean, what a wonderful resource because I mean, getting back to the journalist element of this conversation, I mean, a society is only as free as its press is, truly. And yeah, look at that map and think about where we stand there. I mean, we're certainly way better than a lot of other countries in a much better position, rather. But, also being ranked, 47,
It's not good.
it's not good. And why? Why are we there? Critically look at that and think about that. And, where do we learn from that? And it's fascinating because you can, of course, look at I don't know how long they've been putting this map together, but different years. And of course, every year it's like, oh, that happened, or they were in power, or whatever. I mean, it's so telling of what's going on in society.
That is so crazy.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna have to comb through that now.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have bet money on top 10, at least top 15.
Yeah.
Maybe worst.
Yeah.
But
Let me look it
I
up.
can
Yeah.
actually, I was gonna
look
pull it
it
up. I can pull it up on
Yeah,
our.
pull it up. And okay, so I'm gonna guess. I don't remember the last time I looked. So I'm gonna guess the US is at I'm gonna go with 47. I mentioned 47 earlier.
47.
Okay, what are you gonna say?
Well, now you got me worried. I'm definitely not gonna say top 15. I'm gonna reverse it. I'm gonna go 56.
Okay,
I'm gonna go
okay,
56.
you're the pessimist here.
Well, you have me freaked out now. I was excited. I thought we were better.
No,
I mean,
I wish. I mean, I would love that. I mean, if we're 15, I would be thrilled. That'd be great. But
you're not feeling it.
I'm not feeling it. No, especially 2020.
True. Did you hear? Oh man, they passed some bill in the Senate, I believe, where they removed some gendered language from being able to be spoken. I think it's on the House floor or
Oh,
in certain
really?
bills. Yeah, you can't say like mother and father. This might be, don't quote me on this because this
Sure.
might be, I did not do any
Right.
research into that. Um, but they removed it. I was trying to connect my laptop so that we could pull it up on the screen, but it's not working. So I'm going to,
Damn.
I know. Freaking technology. It screws up
Yeah.
when you need it the most. What is the site called?
Interesting. Reporters Without, or no, I'm sorry, the Global Map Freedom Index,
Global Map
or
Freedom
yeah, I'm
Index.
sure that will
That'll, yeah.
take you to what you're looking for.
But yeah, the Senate thing, I mean, I saw that, and if it's true, that
Hmm.
should be incredibly alarming to everybody.
Right.
Like that's not good at all.
Yeah.
You can't say that's one of my problems. Wait, okay, I'll pull this up before because
One step at a time.
yeah, right. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. Global Peace Index is what this
Okay.
has.
Okay.
Global Peace Index. Da, 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 da. Iceland's number one.
Okay. Yeah.
Good call. Um, we're scrolling down. It's not
Scrolling,
looking
scrolling,
good.
scrolling.
Mongolia's 39.
Okay.
The UAE's 41.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, UK's 42.
Uh-oh.
We're
I'm
now in
scrolling.
70s.
Oh shit, already?
80s, there's no way. Did I
No.
pass it?
I think I passed it one time because I'm like, oh my God, I'm in like
Yeah, because now,
150.
I was going to say, now I'm like 115, there's no way. Okay, we're going to
I mean, I hope
bear
there's
with
no
us,
way,
people.
but
God. Canada's 6, which is
go
impressive.
Canada.
Oh my God, now I'm worried. We're back in the 30s. Um, we're at 60s.
Oh no.
God, are we really this far down, or am I just losing my mind over here? Back to 115. Oh my God, we're 121.
Shut
Oh
up.
my
Oh my
God. I
God.
didn't pass it. Wow.
Oh my God. So
So we
what
weren't
are we
pessimistic enough.
what are we between?
Azerbaijan
Uh-huh.
is 120 and Burkina Faso is 122.
Oh
South
shit.
Africa is 123 and the Republic of the Congo is 124. Yikes.
Wow. Yeah,
That's
well, we
Myanmar is 127. That should speak
holy shit. That
volumes.
does speak volumes. My God. Yeah, I mean, but think about
Well,
what
thanks
the
for
US.
bringing my
Yeah,
data.
well,
Wow,
that's what I do.
okay.
With facts no less. But yeah, I mean, think about what we went through in the last year, you know?
I
And I
know,
mean,
but
I
to
would be
be
curious to read that synopsis, but no, I mean,
I can
yeah, yeah,
click
yeah,
on it.
yeah. You know, like I said, I I remember when I first came across it. This was probably in 2015 or 14, and I believe we were 47. I think that's why it sticks out in
Mhm.
my mind so much. And I think I looked at last year and it was like we're in the 70s maybe. I could be totally wrong, but I thought that's
But
where
it
we
is, I
landed,
mean,
but that
what's
is a
happening now
sharp
is
fall.
yeah. But it would make sense. I mean, with COVID, with everybody pushing against it,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it makes
Protesting,
sense.
conspiracies such as QAnon. I mean,
How do you get to the synopsis? Do you just click
I
on?
think so. Yeah, I
Let me
don't
click
remember.
on
I
it.
don't think
I'm
I've ever
worried.
accessed it on a cell phone either, so it could
Okay,
be a
that
little
might be.
different.
It might be a little bonkers on a cell phone. Yeah, I can't. We'll just.
All right. Well, to the listeners, check it out and read
Yeah,
about it
definitely.
yourselves
It's
because
visionofhumanity.org is where we're at right now, but
okay.
it's the global. This is the Global Peace Index.
Let me see what the map looks
I'm
like.
gonna let you check it out. Oh,
Here.
it's just a ranking.
I'm
I might
sure
be
it's
looking at
you
something
could be, but I mean
completely
that could
wrong.
be. Let me look because I'm pretty sure it's the World Press Freedom Index. Oh shit! It's right 8 o'clock. Oh wow.
Oh, we can. Oh, my bad. We can
Oh
wrap
no,
this up.
you're
I
good.
did
I should
not.
probably wrap up kind of soon, but let's yeah.
We'll end it on this because now I'm
Global.
really. I think I was looking at the Peace Index, so
I mean, also
please
could
disregard that for our
okay,
freedom of speech.
okay, all right,
But Peace Index, that
yeah,
makes more sense because we're not really peaceful out
okay.
here.
All right, yeah. So we're at the Reporters Without Borders site, the
Okay.
Press Freedom Index. So number one is Norway,
Oh, okay.
followed by Finland, Sweden, Denmark. So, you know,
Okay.
and then Costa Rica is number 5. And let's see. Scrolling. UK is 33.
Okay.
South Korea is 42. Taiwan is 43. United States is 44.
44.
So, okay,
Okay,
a lot
way more
better than
comforting.
121.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
Whew.
different.
Okay,
So,
I feel
yeah.
a little bit
But
better.
let's see. Can
Not
I
great.
click? Let's see. So, United States is 44. Abuse score is 39.7. I don't know what that means.
Oh,
Let's see.
that's
Can I
interesting.
click on you? Will you show me why?
Abuse
Yeah.
could be anything. That could be abuse of power, abuse of influence.
Yeah. So, So, wait, is this for 2020? I think it's for 2020. This is a really long read. But yeah, talking about Biden's vow to uphold the environment of truth, COVID, Donald Trump, 400 journalists assaulted, and more than 130 detained.
Oh, that's crazy.
Unprecedented numbers, according to the U.S. Freedom Tracker. Um, Many of 2020's attacks and arrests of members of the media took place as they tried to cover nationwide protests against systemic racism and police brutality towards people of color.
That might be the abuse
Yeah,
score.
there you go.
Yeah.
And Trump himself vilified bona fide news outlets as fake news and qualified award-winning journalists as the, quote, enemy of the people, feeding the type of threatening behavior, including violence and the destruction of equipment, that journalists faced during the uprising against the U.S. Capitol building on the 6th of January. So, I mean, that's just a screenshot.
Wow.
Or a snapshot, rather.
Wow.
That was very 2020 of me, or 2021.
Wow. I'll admit that 44 is a lot better than
Yeah, okay.
100
I'm glad that we were
whatever.
looking
Yeah,
at the
okay.
wrong map. I
Yeah,
mean,
me too,
surely
'cause-
the peace freedom, that there's something to be said for that as well. But
yes, but at least we're not that on the...
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, well, that is a great note to wrap up on.
Yeah,
'cause
holy
It's
shit.
a little more uplifting, but I would have thought we'd be higher. That's kind of
Yeah,
sad that we're not.
yeah. I mean, yeah, how do we fix that? I don't know.
I think we start with you educating those kids.
I guess I gotta be a teacher at
I
Eureka
guess.
High, something.
I guess your
you know?
teacher was right. She called it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I just, I guess if closing thoughts, I just think it is so profoundly important for people to really think critically about the media that we consume. It's like the food you consume.
Yes. Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, if you like consume shit food, you're gonna feel like shit. You're gonna look like shit. Your skin's gonna look terrible, the whole bit. But if you eat good food, you feel good, your brain's functioning real good, you got a glowing complexion, So if you're consuming trash media, I mean, that's just bad for your soul. It's bad for your brain. It's
It's
bad
gonna
for
weigh
your
on you.
relationships. Yeah, it
Yeah.
just like turns your brain into mush, But if you feed your brain with good information and you're actively like looking for better information and, like what we just encountered. I was like, that number sounds kind of crazy. Wait,
Yeah,
which
thank
one are you
God.
looking
Yeah.
at, And we,
That's how it should be.
we correct ourselves. And you're not like, oh God, I'm embarrassed that she corrected me. You're like, no,
No, I'm
this is
so
the right
glad you
one. You're
did.
like, oh
Yeah.
no, good. Like, let's learn, I mean, there's so much more power in that. And I mean, I don't know why people do the things they do. If it's like, if sometimes people are worried about looking stupid if they admit fault or whatever, but knowledge is power or something,
Yeah.
but
Something inspirational
it's
like
so
that.
important, It's
And
huge.
admitting fault, it's not a weakness, is actually a sign of strength when you do
Absolutely.
that. That's something we should take away from this.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you want to plug any of your social medias? Sometimes people do that at the end.
You don't have to. No, I
Yeah,
don't. I
yeah.
need to get on Twitter. My editors are like, so did
You
you
don't
create
need
a
to.
Twitter handle?
You
And
don't
I'm
need
like,
to. It's a cluster just
no, yeah. I mean,
it's not good.
I deal with enough on a daily basis. I also try to keep like my news. I mean, I read about national stuff, but I'm very local news centric for myself. But yeah, I guess you can find my reports in the Times Standard. I usually have about 2 stories in a day. And yeah, timesstandard.com. Or I guess folks with inquiries or want to know more about me being a reporter, you can email me at Vanderheiden, I'll let you spell that yourself, at times-standard.com. So,
All right. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed sitting down with you, and I actually feel, a little more. I feel like I have a little more positive outlook on the people that are reporting and bringing out the news. I think you instilled a little more hope in me that the boots on the ground are good.
good.
Yeah.
I'm very happy to hear that. I
Yeah.
mean, not everyone has the perspectives that I do, certainly. I'm amazed that I'm like the bright and bushy tailed journalist in our newsroom. My editors are a little more cynical and jaded than I am, but, I'm just, as you can tell from this,
Yeah.
me going on an hour and a half long tirade about how much I care about truth and information. I really do. And I think a lot of journalists really do too. So I
Hmm.
think that people need to remember that and remember that it's hard for us too. And, we need your help as, community members to help show us what's happening, show us where to point the flashlight so we can illuminate the dark corners of society.
Wow, there you go. All right, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you
Thanks,
so much for
guys.
having me.
Absolutely, my pleasure.